All right, familia, how are we doing? Super excited about our session that we have here today on Tuesday, November 30th. It is already the holiday season. We are about to kiss 2021 goodbye. How quickly the time passes. We have a phenomenal session today. We're going to get to some really key speakers. Before we get to any of that, I should probably introduce myself, right? So, Elian Sadoriker, I am the Director of Engagement for LBEN, the Latino Business Action Network. You can follow us at lben.us. We are a collaboration with Stanford for the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative. We have a lot of amazing things that we want to talk about today. We are delighted and extremely excited about having you join us for the strategic session today with Raj. We're going to talk a little bit more about who Raj is, why you should be having your pen, paper ready to take notes and ready to really listen in, do some of these exercises, and then go with your team, go with your employees, and put some of this to work so that you can really grow during next year. But before I go too deep, I already gave you too much. But before I go any further, what I want to say is today across the country is Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is a day where different nonprofits are able to go out and get contributions to help with their efforts. And there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are doing phenomenal work. And of course, here at LBAN, we are a nonprofit. We have some phenomenal sponsors, including Bank of America, who helps us with this six-part series. You're going to hear from them today. But if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and check us out, lban.us. Check out our LinkedIn and our Instagram pages so that you can go ahead and contribute if you can, right? A lot of these efforts on Giving Tuesdays allow us to put together programming like this and programming that's specifically for Latino and Latina entrepreneurs as they go through their journey of scaling at whatever stage they're at. So Mariana is going to put on the chat some of our Instagram links, some of our Facebook links. Our post on Giving Tuesday are all on there. So make sure that you're checking those out. Make sure that you are seeing the work that we're doing and contributing. So Giving Tuesday, check us out on our post on Instagram, on Facebook, so that we can make sure that you're being a part of this community and being a part of this familia. In just a couple seconds, I'm going to have Jennifer Garcia come up on stage to do some introductions. We want to get to some of the content that Raj is going to deliver for us. We have an exciting webinar. I know I'm building this up, and trust me, it is worth it. This is definitely the right way to close off the year as we look towards 2022. And for those of us that are joining just today and haven't seen some of the other things that we've done in this six-part series, you want to make sure to check us out on YouTube. Marianne will also put that on the chat so that you can check out the other sessions that we've done. We talk a lot about capital, preparing the one-pager, getting ready for those conversations so that you can go out there and get those lines of credit, get those VC dollars that we so need so that you can go ahead and expand and scale your business. Okay. Now, we follow that up with a phenomenal session on digital transformation where you get to hear from a panel along with other entrepreneurs on how to digital transform your business for the future that's here today. That you want to check out. And the other sessions that are on there, resources that matter, telling your story. If you missed Tell Your Story, highly recommend to hear that as well. And today we close out with the session with Raj on those strategy sessions for 2022. It's an incredible session. It's an incredible year. I want to have Jennifer come up when she's ready, when we're ready to go with the next session. What I want to tell you though is 2022 is going to be a really exciting year, and you want to look at what we're doing today, the session, the content that Raj is delivering, and work at it with your team, because this is the type of things that really get you to the next level. And this is a really great way to introduce our scaling program. So I'm going to transfer it off to Jennifer, who's going to come up on stage and introduce our next speaker. and then we'll get started with this session. But make sure you're checking us out on Facebook, Instagram, and any other channel that we're on, and check out the videos on YouTube.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elian. Thank you for buying me a little extra time there. I appreciate it. Good afternoon to all of you. Happy Tuesday. Happy Giving Tuesday. We are glad that you're here, that you're joining us. My name is Jennifer Garcia, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Latino Business Action Network, also known as LBAN. Elian already shared a little bit about what we do, but if you are new to our network, I would invite you to visit our website. That is www.lban.us, and we'll put that in the chat for you as well. Today's webinar is the final session of our 2021 Small Business Series. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone that has participated in all 6 sessions. I trust that it was valuable for you. And if you just joined us midway through, or perhaps this is your first session, we are grateful that you got connected. And we look forward to 2022, where we will be bringing additional programming and resources to keep you on a path of growth and scale. So be sure to follow us on social media to stay informed. We know that the opportunities that face Latino-owned businesses are tremendous, right? Entrepreneurship provides a pathway for wealth, for generational wealth, the ability for you as a business owner to create jobs, and much, much more. But we also know that those opportunities are met with many challenges and many barriers. You may be experiencing barriers in accessing capital, accessing resources, education to grow and scale, perhaps a barrier in accessing a professional network. We here at LBAN, we are grateful for Bank of America, and who is our supporter of the Small Business Series. Their support has enabled us, the LBAN team, to deliver resources and education around capital and business tools that will position you for growth. I have to say that we have the pleasure of working with a phenomenal team at Bank of America: Ray Velasquez, Kathy Gallagher, Raquel Gonzalez, and many others. But at this moment, I want to introduce you to Raquel Gonzalez. She is the president for Bank of America's Silicon Valley market. And in addition to being an enterprise leader in one of California's most dynamic and diverse regions, she is fiercely committed to supporting diverse-owned businesses and closing the capital and resource gap. We have been fortunate, we, LBAN, have been fortunate to co-create with her and her team, and I can tell you that she is a strong advocate for small businesses and for LBAN. Again, we are grateful for Bank of America support, and would you welcome Raquel so that she could share a few words from the Bank of America's perspective. And Raquel, I see you're on screen, but maybe your camera is still turned off. If you're able to turn on your camera.
All right, not sure if that's better, Jennifer.
We hear your voice coming through, so that's great.
All right, well, I think maybe today we're going to have to go with voice only.
Wonderful.
All right, excellent. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Jennifer. Thanks, Arturo, Elian, Diego, for hosting today's session. We are so proud of our partnership with LBAN, and we truly can say that we share the same commitment to helping Latino and Latina entrepreneurs to continue to grow their business. As Jennifer mentioned, today's session is going to focus on strategic planning for the year ahead. And strategic planning is a way to translate your vision into action. And I think today this is more important than ever, because we all have so many factors and variables to consider. As entrepreneurs, one of the most important steps is taking the time to build that plan that helps your business prepare for opportunities as well as challenges. For example, when business owners seek capital, lenders or investors always want to understand the business strategic plan, because it provides insight into where the company is going in terms of growth, innovation, competition, you name it. Companies that are able to thoughtfully articulate their plan are, it doesn't come as any surprise, right? They're better able to advocate for resources and the support that they need. And with the pandemic, as it continues to require business owners to innovate and plan for ongoing change driven by consumers, employees, supply chain. Again, being able to advocate and tell your story is more important than ever. This year, in our Hispanic Business Owner Spotlight, we surveyed nearly 1,000 small business owners across the country. And the economic outlook and business projections are rebounding for Hispanic business owners. Looking ahead, Hispanic business owners expect their revenue to increase over the next year. There's economic optimism, and they also tell us that they have strong hiring plans, which is great because that we see that increasing from last fall. So this is all great news. But how you as business owners plan ahead can have a positive impact on all aspects of your business. So I know this last session in the series will be invaluable, and I hope that it really helps you and your team better position your company for success in 2022. Thanks again, Jennifer, and turning it back over to you for the introduction of our speaker.
Thank you, Raquel. And again, thank you to you and your entire team and the support from Bank of America. We're just really grateful that through your support, we're able to bring additional education and resources to the businesses, the small businesses that we serve across the country. All right, so what you are all here for is strategic planning. I applaud you for choosing to spend the next 90 minutes acquiring the skills and the tools to prepare and plan for success in 2022. Today's session will be facilitated by a good friend, Raj Tedla. He is the CEO of VRT Management Group. He is also an international leader who has traveled extensively to train executives and managers in 38 different countries. And I know that he has a passion for supporting small businesses. Raj has been a valuable contributor to the Elban ecosystem. He serves as a mentor and gives of his time and expertise freely. So Raj, we are so grateful to have you here today. Thank you very much. And would you all just join me in welcoming Raj as I pass the stage and the mic to him?
Thank you, Jennifer. So, and Vic, let us get into the slides. I know everybody's very eagerly waiting for that. So what I have done is I put together a few slides for you. But one thing I want you to focus on is the last slide. When I get to the last slide, I want each one of you to be very, very comfortable because I have a very, very special offer for the first 25 people. I am not sure how many people are there because I worked with Elban for the last 4 years and I really love to work with them. I have a special surprise. Whoever needs it can take care of it, but just wait until the last minute. That is all I would say for you, each one of you. So what we are talking about is strategic planning today. How do you go back and use that and really grow your business? There are about 5 different things that you do. Again, depending on what book you come and what school of strategy you follow, there are several different things. But the way I put it is these are the 5 things from more of the small and the medium-sized businesses which are really growing, want to scale as fast as that. So this is based on my own experience, all the research I have read and spent time with a lot of senior leaders from the small and medium-sized businesses. So if you go into the next slide. So the 5 things I want to briefly talk about is the first thing, each one of you need to go back and look at your mindset and some foundational skills. When I say foundational skills is how you think. The strategy planning piece of it starts with how you think and what are you thinking about your business? What are you thinking about your markets, your employees, your customers? All of that is there. And the second piece I'm going to briefly touch about is the one-page strategy plan. And if you do a Google search, you'll have at least 50, 100 different plans. This is one of the things almost like 130, 140 of my customers have used over the past 15, 20 years. Very, very simple, very, very effective for everybody who has taken the time to fill it out. It seems very easy, but when you start filling it out, it takes time. And the third part of it is SWOT analysis. Every time I go and I talk to people, they talk about SWOT analysis. And they do the SWOT analysis, put it on the shelf. But I'm going to talk slightly differently. How do you look at it from a different perspective when it comes to strategy? And the fourth one is, what are some of the critical questions about your customers, about your markets, and what are some of the things you need to think about as part of your strategy plan? Last but not the least is about project charters. You got initiatives, you got goals, you have everything else. But how are you going to execute that? One of the best things we have noticed is use a simple project charter for everything that you do. I'm going to briefly talk about these 5 elements. So if you go to the next slide. So one of the things I want each one of you to go back and think about, the next one, please. Yes. So if you go back and look at it and look at the literature, VUCA is a term that is used extensively for the past 10, 15 years, especially since September 11th. I have heard a lot of it, but there was not a lot of clarity around it. But if you look at the last 2 years, that has become predominantly affecting a lot of the small and medium businesses compared to the bigger businesses. And what it stands is basically there is a lot of volatility in the market, especially in the business world. There is a lot of uncertainty. Even if you look at as of last week, because of the new variant that has been identified in basically Africa and how it is spreading, that brings a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity to all of our lives. So there's a lot of complexity in the business world we are doing, and then the ambiguity piece of it. So we need to look at all those 4, always have that in the forefront of it. When you're thinking about it, for the last 30, 40, 50, 100 years, whoever it is, everybody knows what a SMART goal is. I'm not going to talk about it, but because everybody's comfortable with it. But now, with all of the VUCA piece of it, you need to start thinking about FAST goals. And that is what I have been doing. There's a great article by MIT done in 2018 about this whole FAST goals piece of it, but I'm going to briefly give you that piece of it. Basically, when you go to FAST, and you can go to the next slide, frequently discussed. That is the biggest piece of it that you want to go back and look at it. So whatever strategy, whatever goals or metrics you have put together, the one big thing you need to go back and create systems in this is go back and really review them. Are you having discussions with your team, basically related to progress, resources, allocation, and with the changing times and the uncertainty and stuff, you should be comfortable to even change some of the priorities, but for the right reasons. That is the reason why your frequently discussed piece of it is the number 1. The second part of it is you want ambitious goals. That is what strategy is. And everybody here is an entrepreneur. And here, I know that each one of you is very, very ambitious. Yes, we want to go back and do that. But one of the things you need to go back and look at it, don't put too much stress on that. Put something that will challenge you, but it is not impossible to achieve. If somebody is making $2 million today, don't go back and say, I have a goal to make it $100 million next year. It's not going to happen. And most of your team will be discouraged with that. If you want to go back and have 50%, 100%, and you should be in a position to articulate what is the roadmap to get there. Some uncertainty in the roadmap, but you need to be in a position to articulate. Then it is ambitious, but it is still, you can accomplish it and you can reach it. And you want a specific goal. Goals are translated into concrete metrics and milestones. That is something. If you go back and say, I want to grow a company, that is not a concrete. But if you put a percentage, you put a dollar value, you put a number of merchandise you sell, a lot of that will force you to bring clarity to the situation, to the goal, and then everybody can follow that. And that is something which we need to go back and look at it, and that is part of the FAST goals. And fourth one is transparent. And what I have noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs, basically small and medium size, is they might be 4, 5, 8 critical, 10 people who might know the goals, but others do not know. So take the time to go back and be very, very transparent and share that piece of it. 1, share the goals, and 2, share the performance. At a team level, employee level, whatever it is. But within your company, you want to go back and look at it. That is the only way you can get the buy-in piece of it. So the first thing I tell each one of you to do is look at your FAST goals. Try to incorporate these 4 steps into your strategic plan and the execution plan for 2022. Next page, please. So this is one of my favorite things. It's a very, very direct thing is, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, change is the only constant we have. And I got this from Thomas Edley. There's a great book around it. Either you change or you die. And I'm sure everybody knows about it. Basically, any business that is started as an entrepreneur, small business, medium business, 80% of them basically close in the first 5 years. And then in the next 5 years, another 80% close. So 95.6% of the businesses don't exist 10 years after they start. And the biggest reason is they're not changing fast enough and as required. So one of the things I want each one of you to remember that is it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. The only one that is most responsive to change. I want each one of you, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about change, but this is something I want you to go back and think about, because the whole world changed around us, especially the last 2 years. But are we changing in how we approach strategy? Are we changing in how we approach our customers, how we market our products and services? So we need to really have that shift in our minds. And the 3 things that you need to look at it from the foundational skills: how you think, how you act, and how you lead. Those are the 3 things I want each one of you to go back and focus on as you're building up your team, your strategy, everything for 2022. Next slide, please. So this is a great picture. I really, really appreciate it. When we go back and create our own strategy plan, everybody thinks that it is going to be like the left-hand side of that. A beautiful highway, a national highway. We planned everything. We spent a lot of time. We really researched, looked at everything else. That is 30% of the effort. So strategy, basically creating the strategy, putting everything in place, is about 30%. And it looks like an highway where everything is smooth and running. But in reality, when it comes to the execution piece of it, where is 70% rubber meets the road, it is almost like your right-hand side. You will have a lot of potholes. You will have a lot of changes. You will have a lot of blunders, mistakes, problems, opportunities and stuff. And that's the reason why we need to be very, very comfortable. The fast goals become very important and the change becomes very, very important for all of us. So I want you to think of it. Yes, we are going to plan, come up with a strategy just like the left picture and highway. But when it comes to execution, I want each one of you to be aware of the right-hand side picture. Think of that every single time you're looking at it. The next slide, please. So one of the things about the change your mindset piece of it comes from is a lot of people look at their actions and they try to change it. And when you look at the actions and change it, you can maybe see some small incremental changes, and that might help you on a short-term basis. But when you are really looking at it from a strategy perspective, you as the business leader and your leadership team, you have whoever is with you, I want you to go back and really do a deep dive and see what is your belief system, and based on the belief system, what are your assumptions? Fundamental mind shift happens when you go back and understand your belief systems and what are the assumptions and how do you go back and start changing that. If you want monumental growth, you want monumental change in your business, in your life, in your leadership, I would say go back and start looking at your assumptions. What are the assumptions you are making and how do you go back and change those? That is when you start getting much, much better results. So actions, easy to identify, easy to go back and change, but small benefits. Assumptions, much more talent, much more rigorous, much more deep thinking, but you can get monumental change, monumental growth, whatever you're looking for. So this next holiday season, in the next 30 days, you have some time, take some time, reflect on some of those things, understand your assumptions, and try to incorporate those assumptions into your business plans, into your strategy plans. Next, please. And these are about 5 foundational entrepreneur skills I really like to talk about. We as entrepreneurs, because I'm an entrepreneur just like you are, we are continuously learning, unlearning, and relearning. And especially when we are growing, basically, there are some skills that helped up when we had 20, 30, 40 employees. But as soon as you get to 50, 60 employees, there are certain things that you need to stop, unlearn, and then learn new skills and then implement them. The same thing happens when you get to 100 employees, to 150 employees. So an entrepreneur who can do that successfully will be in that 4.6% of the population who are still running their businesses after 10 years. That is something I want each one of you to do it. And one of the questions I ask each one of you for 2022 is, what are one or two things I need to stop doing or unlearn? And what are the two things I really want to go back and learn and start doing for 2022? That is a great homework. If you can get a pen and a paper, write it down, reflect on that, and you see a lot of benefit on that. The number 2 point is value yesterday, but live for today. Yesterday is great. We need to go back and learn everything that we can learn from our past successes. And it can be past failures as well. But both of them are irrelevant for what is happening today. And the last 2 years, we have seen a lot of change that way. Or even if you go back and look at a football game or a baseball game, I follow football much more, but I use the football analogy is, it doesn't matter what was the score last Sunday. It is not going to help me anything. I need to focus on today and how this game is going to happen. And the third part of it is you want to have speed. There is no issues about it. The faster, the better. You're on top of your things and stuff. But the biggest piece is you want to be ready for the timing. The old Chinese saying goes is, when you are prepared, the opportunity comes. And that is exactly what it is. You want to prepare, you want to think, you want to plan, and you want to be ready for the timing piece of it. And if you do everything from your strategic planning piece of it and you have the foundational skills, you'll be ready for the timing piece of it. And the fourth one is the uncertainty piece of it. We all know that. But are we making decisions? Is the uncertainty making us freeze and not take action? Or is it really going back and saying, let us start analyzing this directionally, what we can understand, and how do we move courageously to that uncertainty and handle that? Because the motion is very important. The execution is very, very important. You can make changes as you go. That's the reason why the fast goals come into picture, but here. And the fifth and the last point is, today's best is great, but it will not help you solve tomorrow's problems. So every single time, go back to your fundamental thing and say, hey, this was great. But from a strategy perspective, will this work for me tomorrow? Will this work for me the next few years? If not, what do I need to change? I'll give you one example. I was talking to a traditional, authentic Mexican supermarket, one of the owners and stuff. And the question I challenged him is very successful for the last 40, 50 years. But if you really look at it, the customer profile of theirs was very different for the last 30 to 40 years. Whoever they're depending on, they're all coming to their 60s and 70s, and the new generation is taking over. And if your new generation is coming, are they going to buy the exact same way? Are their shopping experiences going to be the exact same way? And this shop owner has to strategically look at it and say, what are some of the changes they need to do if they want this to be surviving for the next 30 to 40, 50 years? That is something you want to go back and understand. They have 40 years of history, but it does not guarantee that they will be successful 10, 15 years from today if they stay the same. That is where the change piece of it comes into picture. The next page, please. So here, the strategy plan, I'm going to show you the strategy plan in a few minutes, but these are about 6 things I want each one of you to think about when you're coming up with your strategic plan. The first thing is geographic area of customers. Where do you want to really focus? And one of the common questions I say is, hey, the internet has made my life very easy. I can go sell anywhere and everywhere. That is very true when you have unlimited resources. But if you have limited resources, you cannot go after everything. So you need to really go back and pinpoint and say where you want to be. And sometimes it can be a space in the internet and say, I want to go back and work with them on the internet at this place. But take the time to really understand that piece of it. And then your target customer segments. This is one piece I have seen at least 70 to 80% of the customers really struggle with. You really want to understand who your customer is and what it is. And can you explain that to every single employee in your company in 1 to 3 sentences? And it can be the frontline employee at any different level in your company. If you explain them in 1 to 3 sentences, would they go back and say, oh, this is our customer. This is what we're going after. That is the litmus test. I want each one of you to think about it and ask everybody in your employees at the different levels. And product and services, depending on where you are, you want to pinpoint and say, what are your core products? So if you are a startup with, let us say, 10, 15 employees, 20 employees, I would recommend no more than 3 maximum. We have seen that people who have 5, 10 products, it becomes very difficult. Again, business model differs, but that is what I have seen with that. So pinpoint and see what are your core, and how do you go back and make sure all of your efforts, or 80% of your efforts, should be in making that a success, and all of your goals and strategy should be to reach your financial goals based on the strategy and the products you have. And once you identify that, how do you go back and really communicate with them? What is your go-to-market strategy? How are you communicating with your customers? What is their current situation with them? And do you understand your customers' customers? That is something which you can go back and really understand as well. So that is the fourth piece of it. And the fifth piece of it is the value proposition. What is the promise you're making to your customer? It is very easy on a high level to talk about value proposition, but if it is generic, it becomes a little more difficult. Your product, your service, your salespeople, every single person, your marketing, your website should be in a position to do that. And it's very, 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 very important about it. And that is where your competitors and you differentiate. If somebody is comparing your product with the competitors, they're looking at the value proposition and say, I want to go with customer A or customer B. That is the differentiation factor. So I want each one of you to take that piece of it seriously as well. And the sixth piece of it, one of the example is, I like the Uber example. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But basically, one of the things about Uber is offering convenience. Wherever you are, you have your phone with you, you can find an Uber. And the next piece of it is the brand promise. What is that one measurable thing you can be proud of and the customer recognizes you after you provide your services and stuff? That is what measurable building value is all about. What is that you want to go back and do? So if you go back and look at FedEx, what comes to your mind? So most of the people, whenever you see FedEx, next day delivery. UPS is a big competitor, but they call themselves Brown. They don't call about next day. Their branding is different. They have one day. US Postal Service has it. But when you go back and look at it, FedEx, that is when you think about the one day delivery or next day delivery. When you think of Geico, you have so many different insurance companies, but Geico, 15 minutes will save you 15%. They know that. Anybody who's calling them is expecting that 15%, and they become their customer. And BMW, it is an ultimate experience, right? It is a driving experience, the ultimate machine. So you need to start thinking about it from your value proposition and brand promise, and every single person in the company should feel comfortable about it, and they can very easily articulate that with your customers. So these are all part of the one-page strategy plan. I'm going to show you a sample in a few minutes, but I really want you to go back and think of it from that perspective. So these are some fundamental questions I want you to go back and think about. The next slide, please. So this is one of the things I want each one of you to do it. There is a strategy plan, document and stuff. I'll tell you how to get a copy of it. The first thing I want you to think about is come up with some good fast goals. And the fast goals should always have a metric around that. If you cannot measure your goal, then pretty much it is not a goal. So think of your business 12 months. And what is that goal which will stretch you and your business and your employees and still realistic enough to achieve it? So generally, if you go back and look at it, people go back and say, okay, I'm going to do year over year 8 to 10%. But some of the people, without thinking, they go back and say 50%, 80%, 100%. I have no issues with that. But what is the assumptions they're making? That is where the strategy plan comes. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and that will help me to get to 80% growth. That is the kind of thought process what your whole strategy planning has to be. My simple definition of strategy plan is I want to get here, and these are the 3 things I'm going to do to get there. I am not going to touch the other people. These 3 things, if they don't work, I'm going to change, modify, do anything based on the information I get. And that is where the fast comes into picture. So strategy is I'm going to do this to get this. And I am not going to do this because it is not helping me to get to my metrics. The simplest form of it is what I go back and tell people. And if you look at it on the one page, you have the goals, and then you have what we call key initiatives. So for our discussion, I can call key initiatives, objectives, priorities. I'm interchangeably using it. I'm not too much worried about the vocabulary. You can use whatever you feel, but try to think of no more than 3 to 5 big practices or initiatives. Whatever business you have, do not think of more than 3 to 5, because you cannot handle it and the people cannot handle it at the highest level, at a strategy level. And each one of those objectives or initiatives would have between 3 to 5 result areas. Again, measurements, key result areas. So each one of you, I would say, go back and spend some time and look at it. The more you can go back and debate about it and think about it, and more clarity the team or the leader has, the easier it is. So basically 3 to 5 objectives or key initiatives, and each one of those initiatives to have between 3 and 5 key result areas. That is a best practice if you got it. I want to recommend that piece of it for you. The next slide, please. So I go back and I put this OKR here because that is the new terminology for key initiatives. I want everybody to be exposed to that. So key initiatives or objectives are going to be used interchangeably in my discussion. So please bear with me on that. So what is an objective? What is a key initiative? It is a qualitative statement of what one wants to achieve. It is more generic kind of a thing. It is very, very qualitative. So speed up product development. That can be an objective at a lower level. Or you can go back at a higher level, and if I take a, let us say, football team, the general manager is basically, how do I make money for my owner? Everybody thinks Super Bowl, but Super Bowl is not a general manager's key goal or measurement. How do I make money for that? The coach's goal is to get a Super Bowl. So it differs from person to person and the different levels piece of it. So here, what I want you to look at it is, what is that qualitative statement? Think of 3 to 5 qualitative statements that will help you to reach your goals in 2022. And basically, if you look at an example for it, basically increase your sprint velocity. In sales, whoever I'm talking about sales, basically they want to go back and have the velocity of their product movements. That is mostly in the consumer market they use. So they want the velocity to be 20. Higher the score, the product is moving faster. So more product sells, more profitability for them. So this year might have been 10, next year might be 20. That's great. But you really want to go back and understand is, what am I doing differently to get from 10 to 20? That assumption piece of it and the thought process of it and the strategy behind that is where you want to go back and be very, very focused on. Like I said, 3 to 5 objective statements, and each one of this less than 5 metrics. I always say 3 to 5 metrics. So overall, if you get 3, you will have between 9 and 15 key metrics to go after, or key result areas. That's how I want you to start thinking about it. And that is going to really, really help you to push yourself and get clarity around what you want to do. 70% execution failure is because we have not done a good job in getting the clarity in the 30% of the strategy plan. So far, I hope everybody's getting what I'm doing. Because of the time, I'm just going a little bit faster in this. So this is where I would recommend showing the one-page strategy plan, if you can. Stop the PPT for a second and show me the other part of it. Give us a minute. Hopefully everybody's digesting the information. Elian, are we okay? There, perfect. So hopefully everybody can see it. So what I want you to go back and focus on is, see that middle second column which says 1 year. That is exactly what I showed you in the PPT piece of it. So you have the 1 year, you have the metrics on the top, and then on the key initiative side, which are your objective statements, you have place for 5. I would recommend each one of you do not go beyond 5. If you're only with 3, that is okay. And then once you finish that, what I want you to do is, remember the fast goals? You need to have a frequency of how fast and how soon you want to review that. Here, we have given you at least a minimum of once a quarter. From the goals of 1 year, you want to put them and divide them into the 4 quarters. What are the goals for each one of the quarter? And within that each quarters, what are some of the things you're activating and you're working on to make sure that quarterly goals are met? So everything that is on your 1 year and basically the initiatives piece has to be spread around the 4 quarters. And there are some initiatives you need to think about 3 years and really work towards that. Everything in 1 year, you have to accomplish in 1 year. But there are certain things that might go beyond 1 year. Let us say you're developing a custom-made software for an ERP system. You know that it is going to take you 2 or 3 years. So that goes into your 3-year column. And then you go back and say, what are some of the things I need to work on? But each one of those activities also has to be done this year and next year. Those will also go into your quarterly planning piece of it. So this is a very, very powerful document once you start thinking and putting everything else. It is still 1 page, 2 sides. And this is an editable PDF. So I'm going to share that with everybody who has participated. But this is a very, very valuable document for you. So once you finish completing this, this is the first step. I want each one of you to look at it. Elian, can you go to the other side of the sheet, please? So yeah, that's great. So once you finish that piece of it and see this vision and the sandbox, those are the elements I just spoke to you. I want you to focus on that first. You can focus on some of the other values and everything else, but if you don't have the time, this is one place I want you to go back and focus on. Basically, the geographic area, the target customer elements, products and services. How do you go to the market? Value proposition, brand value. This is the column where you document all of those things. Once you finish these 2 activities, filling out the other side and this, that is when I want you to do a SWOT analysis. And I'm sure most of you have heard what the SWOT analysis is: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But most of the people, 80 to 90% of the people, do the SWOT analysis as a generic company-wide initiative. I don't want you to do that. I want you to look at your 1-year goals. And I really want to do your SWOT analysis based on your 1-year goals. So this year, if I have done 1 million and my people are my strengths, next year I want to do 2 million. Are my people still a strength? If you really look at it, it might not be a strength because I am missing 4 key people, or I need 3 more salespeople. So that is where you want to understand your strengths and weaknesses with respect to your 1-year goals. This is one exercise I have seen less than 5 to 10% of the companies doing. So that is something I want each one of you to go back and look at it. How are you doing your SWOT analysis based on your 1-year goals? So first thing is, if you can do the sandbox, everything underneath the sandbox, please complete it. Go to the second side, finish your 1-year goals, identify your 3 to 5 initiatives for your 1-year goals, identify your 3-year goals and 3 to 5 initiatives to get to your 3 years goals. Then take each one of those things, put into your quarterly kind of a box. Once you're done with all of those things, then go to your SWOT analysis. And please, this is not an exercise for you to go back and just say and feel proud. This is where you need to be very, very candid with you, and the team who is working with the leadership team has to be brutally honest. Because if we go back and say, hey, everything is fine, then we are losing a great opportunity to go back and accomplish what we want to accomplish. And if you feel like you cannot objectively do it, get a consultant, get a coach, facilitator, whatever you are comfortable with. But make sure that this is done very, very objectively. This will determine how fast you can get to your goals. So Elian, if you can go back to the PPT, please. So I'm hoping that everybody understood, especially the SWOT piece of it. So the next page after that, please. So this is your final SWOT piece of it. Basically, you have your strengths and weaknesses on the top based on your 1-year goals. And always your strengths and weaknesses are internal. They're not external. The opportunities and threats are beyond your company. I want each one of you to remember that. So strengths and weaknesses, internal to the business, people, process, documentation, everything is considered into that. And the external piece of it would be the opportunities and threats. And then do it with respect to your 1-year goals. And if you're fascinated, you'd really like to do it, then do it for your 3-year goals separately. You will learn a lot about your people. You'll learn a lot about your process. And we're talking about digital transformation. You will go back and look and learn a lot about that piece of it as well. And each one of those things has to be taken and built into your quarterly plans. And if you feel like there is more into it, then take a separate sheet of paper and work on a monthly plan as well. You can review them every month as well. So that is where you bring a lot of value to your strategy planning process. Next slide, please. So this is what I call a project charter. It is very, very simple, basically, but every single initiative which requires more than a simple doing it kind of a thing, I take those 3 to 5 initiatives, what I was talking about, and I bring them here. And what I go back and do it is, what is the problem or the opportunity and the objective piece of it? I really think about it from that perspective. What is the object? And is it a problem that we are trying to solve, or is there an opportunity that we need to go back? And you want to clearly write that why. That helps you to understand the why. And the business case piece of it is, why is this important for your business at this time? Because some people might come back and some with great ideas, but it might not help you to get where you want to get in 2022. Or it may take resources from some of your key products or services that you're banking on. So you're always constantly prioritizing things to make it happen. And once you have the objective and the key result areas, then you want to go back and look at it and say, what is in scope for this project and what is out of scope? So what you're doing is you're narrowing it down and you're bounding what you want to execute. If you don't pay attention to that, what happens is you get scope creep and the project keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing, and it is never completed. A lot of projects, a lot of strategic objectives which were not accomplished, if you go back and do a postmortem for that, one of the biggest reasons will be is basically project scope creep. So they kept on adding in between. 2, or the resources were taken away. Either it is resources of people or money. Those are the 3 things. But the scope was number 1, not the people or the resources. So I want each one of you to think of it, because we are all small business owners. We have limited resources. So we need to go back and guard this project charter very, very much. And the last piece of it here on the left-hand side is, what are the benefits? It can be revenue, it can be non-revenue, but why are we doing this and what are some of the benefits? Start quantifying that. And reason why we are doing all of these things is just spending a couple of hours thinking and planning for this provide a lot of clarity for everybody that is working on. And on the right-hand side, I say there should be a minimum of 2 people. One is a project lead. So this is a person, every single time, it doesn't need to be the CEO or the entrepreneur. It is one of them who is responsible for executing this project and delivering the result. And there should be a coach, or more than a coach, a champion who can eliminate the obstacles this person might come back. If you are very small, you play a role and maybe the top 2 people take care of it. If you are 500 people, you have different layers, so you manage it differently. But the project lead is the person who is responsible for the results of this. And you need to look at their workload and everything else accordingly. You give them 120% workload and still work on this, then you'll miss out on the initiative piece of it. So if this is very important, put one of your best people on this and make sure you give them 5-10% of their weekly time to work on it and help with the results. And whoever is a subject matter, they can be part of the team members as well. And they have a kickoff meeting, and then basically they go back and look at it and say, these are the 6, 8, 10 steps we need to do to get to the result. And they start putting, okay, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and start documenting some of the steps and the timelines for each one of those things. Again, that is very flexible. Everybody can feel comfortable. But what happens is you're bounding everything and you're putting it into one page, what you're trying to accomplish. Accountability becomes very clean, communication becomes very easy, and clarity becomes very, very simple. That is the reason why we are bringing all of those things. I have seen a lot of project management tools. There are several of them, but this is one thing which has been simplified, and I have been using it successfully since 1994. The next page, please. And one of the things, again, remember I was talking about review piece of it, right? So here, whatever the team thinks is the right review, you just have one piece saying that, hey, since last week, what have we accomplished? What did we learn? What did we change? That is the top piece of it. The second piece of it is, hey, I'm struggling with this. This is additional support I need. I need these resources. I need people, whatever it is. Those are the two questions every week, every other week. The project lead has to think, plan, take few minutes. Don't spend hours together. This should not take you more than 15 minutes to 20 minutes. You document that, bring it to the champion, bring it to the team, have a 15 minutes, 30-minute discussion, and everybody's gone. So it is not building bureaucracy. It is simplifying things, but bringing accountability for everybody. Communication and accountability becomes very, very, very important here. So I hope everybody is going back and feeling comfortable about it. I really would like to take a few questions, if possible, now before we moving on to the next piece of it. Anybody in the chat, or what is the best way to do it, Ilian?
Yeah, let me see what we have, if we have any questions. One of the big questions was, is the slideshow going to be shared? So can you, Raj, just tell us what's going to be shared for everybody while I look for some questions?
Okay, basically, the next slide is something I want to show. It is on the slide. I'll show you what is there. I have something which I want to offer. I just want to share it just like that, but it will be shared, but there are certain conditions. I want them to take action and be proactive. Nothing is free, right?
Yeah. Okay, let me see if I have any questions from here. So the question that was put up right now was, why SWOT after goals? Shouldn't strategy drive goals?
So the biggest piece of it is, once you finish the strategy piece of it, you are again double checking and saying, do I have the right team? Do I have the right strengths and weaknesses? Are my processes, everything, can they go back and deliver? So this is a double check, because the SWOT purpose of it is to say, what are my strengths as a business? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities and threats? But the biggest piece is strengths and weaknesses from the one-year goals perspective. So the question is basically, can you provide an example of the project charter? So anything can be a project charter. If you go back and look at it and say, I want to grow my business in 2022. And the next piece of it, that will be basically the objective is growth. Then I go back and ask is, what are the key measures? What do you mean by growth? So then somebody says, okay, I want to grow by 30%. That's great. But what are the key measures for it? So it can be by new customers. It can be by new products. It can be offering new services. And all of those will go into the key result areas. And based on that, the scope will be different. Let us say I want to go back and expand from New York to, let us say, New Jersey. So geographically, you go back and say, hey, the new product, I need to get 30% from New Jersey. That would be the metric for me. Then the scope is only New Jersey sales. Everything will be out of sales. 30%, whatever the dollar value for it will be, that would be the benefit of it. The business case would be is, why New Jersey? Because we have our product meets a lot of the Latinx community piece of it. There is a lot of migration there, and the presence is very, very minimum. So the business has to capture it before somebody else comes there. So that is how you start working on it. Hopefully that example was relevant enough.
I think so. And we're going to move to the next question, which is, how often do you recommend the executive staff meet to revise the project charter?
So generally, I go back and say it is no more than 30 minutes to 45 minutes, at least every other week. That is the minimum for the executive staff to meet. Because these are some of the key initiatives that will affect the bottom line and the 2022 strategy and goals. So they need to have a handle on things. And if there are some things coming up, they need to go back and help resolve some of those things.
Great. Let's take one more question. Raj, how do you feel about one more question, two more questions?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's see what the next question is. I'm going to pull one that I saw out in the chat, which is, as CEO, can I also be the facilitator?
Basically, yes, you can be there. But one of the challenges is depending on the culture. If most of your people are really scared of who you as this thing, they may not open up. And two, basically the CEO cannot get the maximum value because he or she cannot contribute to the discussion. And I always go back and recommend get a neutral facilitator, and the CEO always speaks last. Those are the two conditions in my meetings when I facilitate. CEO always speaks last. I want to really hear from everybody else. Because the general small and medium-sized companies, what happens is, if the CEO says, we need to go to New Jersey, everybody says, yes, that's the best idea. If not, somebody might come back and say, you know what, New Jersey is easy and access, but you know what, basically Illinois is really growing much faster than this. I think it's a little bit difficult to go there, but we can see much more growth in Illinois. That idea will never come up if the CEO says New Jersey. Again, that depends on the culture and the people in the room, but that is one of the things I always tell people when I'm facilitating them.
Great. I want to ask one more question from Perla, because we see this in a few different chats. But the question ends up being, how do we make this process manageable? We have no formal plan and are starting from scratch. So overall, we've seen a couple comments, kind of people saying, hey, I don't have a plan. I'm kind of out here by myself. So what is that starting point, or how can companies go from there?
So even if they set up like 3-4 hours and just start answering those questions. So the first thing I would go back and say is, hey, 2022, what is our goal? What would we look like for Christmas of 2022? Just start asking those questions. If somebody says, hey, we have 2 million right now, we want to be 3 million or 4 million, whatever the number, then have a discussion about it and be candid discussions. So each one of those things are very, very simple enough to go back and really get those questions answered. That is where I would start. And if not, basically, there is a lot of literature even on the internet to go back and get that piece of it. So what I would say is at least go back and have one session of 4 hours, start with the document, have some open questions, open discussions, but at least have one person who is not involved in it taking a lot of notes. And if you are comfortable, record the whole thing and transcribe the whole thing. That is one thing I would recommend everybody, because there are so many things when we are talking, we might make the notes. So if you have an admin or a secretary or somebody who is very, very good note taker, make sure they're there. Their only job is to go back and document everything. And in the last 15 minutes before everybody leaves, they go back and see what all they have documented so that everybody understands what was said. That would be the first minimum 4 hours I would say to start with. Then you can go back and see, you know what, we had this, wait for a week, go back and do another 4-hour session and say, hey, these are some of the things that I really like. These are some of the things after a weeks of thinking and thought process, reflecting on it, I would like to modify. And maybe after the second session, you'll have something that you can start working. So I think I saw a note here saying, how long will this take? But that is perfectly fine. So if you can go to the next piece of it. The next slide, please. So this is what I have for each one of you. I have decided to go back and 25 people. I just want you to go back to that link, use that link and just put in your details. So you will get the one-page strategy plan. But I'm going to go offer you something more. There is a TriMetrix HD is a very, very powerful assessment. 90% of my customers, 130 companies I work with, they do not hire anybody manager and above without this assessment. They don't promote anybody with this. So this is a great tool for you to understand your behaviors, your driving forces, acumen, and competency. It is a pretty expensive one, but for the first 25 people, I'm going to send them a link to finish this. And what I'm going to do is whoever finishes the assessment and the one-page strategy plan based on what I said, if you finish that and send it to me, I am more than willing to spend a one-on-one session with you, maybe 2 or 3 other people, review that and provide feedback through Zoom. So whoever is interested, the first 25 people will get that piece of it. So one assessment will take you about 45-50 minutes to complete it. You will get the one-page strategy plan. And if you complete that and you want some time, basically we'll send you a link. You can book a time with me for an hour and I will review and provide some inputs to you. That is something I'm offering for the first 25 people. Hopefully, a few of you will take advantage of it. So if you get the link, just go back and put it on that piece of it. And I have just one more slide that I wanted to cover. And I want you to go back and see the picture there. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking, because the trust for the bird is not on the branch, but its own capabilities, its own wings, that it can fly away. And that is what successful entrepreneurs are made of. We have a lot of strategies, we have a lot of assumptions and everything else. But the biggest part of it is we have the mindset and the confidence that we can go back and weather the storm and make things happen. The grit, I call that the grit. So each one of you here has the grit. You've been through the program, you've been through several different things. So I really wish you a lot of success in 2022, and then let me know how I can help. That's what I had for all of you. If any other questions, I can stay for a few more minutes and answer any questions, or we can go to the next part of it.
Raj, so another question that we have is, how do you ensure the strategic initiatives are aligned to the value proposition?
Basically, if you don't really have the value proposition, how are you developing a strategy? When you go back and look at your projects, you look at your initiatives and goals, it has to be aligned with your value proposition, right? If I want to be one of the best, let us say the BMW, I'm not going to make cheap, basic cars. When I want to go back and say my value proposition is basically the dream machine, right? Or Apple will not make some of the cheaper products, because for them it is always about the product and the experience of the product. So you always need to go back and do a check. Either you understand your value proposition, look at your strategic initiatives and say, are they aligned with my value proposition or not? Or you come up with your value proposition first, and then when you're brainstorming and doing your strategic initiatives, go back and say, hey, we cannot go back and work on this because this is not one of our value proposition. And to your point, remember the SWOT analysis? You can go back and say, hey, this is one of our biggest weakness. We can't exploit with this initiative to go back and provide the value what we want to provide. That is another dimension which you'll go back and look at it. I mean, everybody finishing both sides of the one-page strategy plan is going to be the best and the most powerful piece of it.
Great. I want to go back to the slides and go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, and go ahead and finish. We're getting some great comments and engagement, so I'm loving seeing a lot of this. So I think you're going to get that 25 being filled out very, very quickly. I'm going to go back to the slides so that we can finish off, and then bring Arturo up. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slides, and you tell me anything else you need, okay?
Okay. So if you can just go to the next slide. So if at all anybody is having a problem, oh, it looks like it is working, right? Some people said it is working, some people it is not. Just send me an email at raj@vrt9.com. That is my email address. So raj@vrt9.com is a good one. Just go back and have that and send me a note if you are having difficulties with that. And if you go to the next slide, Elian, let me share that piece of it. So this is one slide. I did not touch it, but what I have been noticing since last year, 2020, is I'm working with all of my clients, and I'm telling you, everybody works with the vision, mission, and the values. But I started working with them on the accountabilities and the norms because we are building a culture that is right. And every single company I have worked with, they are so excited about it. It was a little bit tough in the initial stages for them. It takes time for first to come up with those, and two, basically to implement them and make it across the company. But if these 5 things are being done, it is just excellent, excellent piece of it. So that is one thing I was not sure about the time, but these are the 5 things I want each one of you to go back and remember and see if you can work on those. So that's all I had from my side.
All right. Well, Raj, a big round of applause. So all of you watching virtually, if you could please give a big round of applause to Raj Tedla, who did a phenomenal job. I don't think we've gotten comments like this before. You're always absolutely phenomenal and blow this out of the water. So thank you so much. We're seeing some hand claps, some excellence, some thank you. So really phenomenal job. A lot of people being very thankful. Raj, I want to thank you from the LBAN team, from all of us here. Phenomenal session. And as we go into 2022, this is the kind of work that our entrepreneurs need to go in the right foot to 2022. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. It's always a pleasure working with LBAN and the LBAN team.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Raj. Have a good rest of the week. All of you stick around. I'm going to make some announcements. We have some networking rooms, which we will encourage you to join and talk about what you've learned. But I want to bring up Arturo Cáceres, our CEO, to the stage right now.
Thank you, Ilian. Thank you for that. And thanks a lot to Raj. Raj, you've been a great supporter of LBAN, just always in many different ways. This webinar today is just excellent. You shared with us a lot of valuable information, really great stuff for planning for a very strong 2022. And for all of you that I haven't met yet, I'm Arturo Cáceres, the CEO of LBAN. I want to thank you all for attending this webinar and also the other webinars in this series that preceded this one. Throughout the series, we've tried to cover information that we know is key for business owners to grow their business. The whole focus of LBAN is to help Latino business owners and any business owner to scale and grow their business. This is the single largest economic opportunity for our country, is to help these smaller businesses that are growing to grow to much bigger sizes. And it's through efforts like this and support from great people like Raj that we are able to help propel that concept forward. You know, as Jennifer Garcia, our COO, mentioned earlier, the Bank of America has been a great partner of ours, especially Raquel Gonzalez, the president of Silicon Valley for the Bank of America. We're very grateful to her personally for all of her support. The Bank of America supports LBAN in just about every aspect of what we do. A lot of the work that we do is in collaboration with Stanford University, but it could not happen without the support of sponsors like the Bank of America. And in particular, this webinar series would not have happened without that. So next year, we plan on continuing to push a lot more content out there to all of you. So look for our emails, look for us on social media. You'll be seeing more calls to join our different webinar series that are coming up for 2022. And hopefully we will be able to see you at one of our events. So one of the things that, if you guys can come out to the Bay Area on Stanford campus, January 28th, we will be releasing the annual results for our research survey. We conduct the most extensive research on Latino-owned businesses across the United States. And every year we publish a report at Stanford University. This year it will be January 28th. And so it's open to all of you. For those of you who can't come out to the campus, you could find us online. We will also be broadcasting it live and you could follow the information there. But with that, let me thank all of you for participating in this series and wish that all of you have a great 2022, and we look forward to seeing you soon.